Hello students. Today we're starting the first chapter of English. We'll be reading the given story and learn to pronounce new and difficult words. Let's start reading. Chap number 9. The Flash of Light. It was a cold day and Valentine Howie walked briskly down the cobbled street. It was getting dark and he was in a neighborhood he was not very familiar with. He was on his way home and was thinking about the warm room and the glowing FRE that would greet him on his arrival. A carriage pulled by horses rattled past as Valentine reached the corner of the street. To avoid being trampled by the horses, he stepped back onto the pavement. Before Valentine could cross the road, he heard a rustling sound behind him. He turned and saw in the shadows of a wide doorway a man standing with his hat in his hand. "Please, sir," said the man, "spare some money for a poor blind beggar." Valentine was a kind, soft-hearted man and had thought a lot about the problems of blind people. He had often wondered how he could be of help to the blind. On hearing this request, he at once removed one of his gloves, and putting his hand into high pocket pulled from it a coin which he put in the blind beggar's hat. The blind beggar mumbled his thanks, and Valentine walked away. He was halfway across the road when he heard the beggar call out, "Sir, sir. Please, just a moment." Valentine turned once again, and returned to face the blind man. "Surely, sir," said the beggar, who was an honest man, "you have made a mistake, you have given me a franc instead of a sou." Valentine was astonished. He was not surprised by the man's honesty but by the fact that he could tell so quickly the difference between a franc and a sou. "How did you know that I had given you a franc?" asked Valentine. "Oh," replied the beggar, "it is enough for me to pass my finger over it." This was like a flash of light in Valentine's head. Valentine allowed the beggar to keep the franc, although it was a great deal of money in those days. As he continued his walk, he thought to himself, if the blind can distinguish at the least touch a piece of money, why should they not distinguish a mark, a letter, or a figure? In short, they should be able to distinguish any sign, so long as it is raised. With this idea, Valentine took home a blind boy whom he found begging at a church door. The blind boy became his first pupil and learnt very quickly how to read from raised signs. With the help of money donated by the public, Valentine Howie was able to start a school for the blind. Some years later, a blind man called Louis Braille, 1809-52, also a Frenchman like Valentine Howie, perfected a system of writing especially for the blind. This writing is called Braille. Braille is a special alphabet used by the blind. The alphabet is marked by raised dots on stiff paper, which blind persons can understand by the touch of their fingers. Louis Braille himself was blind and worked in a blind school in Paris. The system that he developed in 1834 was not used much until about the time of Braille's death in 1852. Each letter in the Braille alphabet consists of one or more raised dots. In this diagram, the small dots represent unraised marks, the large dots represent raised marks. From the diagram above, you can see that the letter H consists of 3 raised and the letter L consists of 3 dots, 2. However, the dots for H are in a different pattern to those which make dots up the letter L. There are 6 possible positions for each dot. By placing the dots in various positions, 63 different patterns or shapes can be made. This means that there are patterns for each of the 26 letters of the alphabet. In addition to these 26 patterns, there are patterns for special words or words that are used a lot in everyday language. Some of the common words such as and, it, if, for, the, and many other frequently used words have one Braille symbol each. For example, the word and occurs very frequently in English. To make it easier to read in Braille, it is written like this. AND, otherwise each letter would have to be written like this. Books in Braille have to be quite thick. This is because raised marks are punched out in rows across each page. The raised marks have to be big enough to be felt by the fingertip, so the paper has to be stiff. Many books are written in Braille. Blind people can be taught how to read Braille and, in this way, they too can read and enjoy the works of the great authors. There are also machines that help blind people to write in Braille.